Hey, welcome back to No Hype Beer Reviews. Unless it's your first time, then welcome. Please consider subscribing. If you do, hit the notification bell, get all the updates. We're going to start for today's video. It is Saturday, and on Saturdays I do Cellar Saturday, where I actually drink one of these aged beers. So this one, Michael commented on last week's Cellar Saturday, and he said something to the effect of like, looking forward to you doing that, or waiting for you to do that. I forgot how he worded it, but anyway, alluding to like, hey man, do this beer. So also just like, yeah, if you see something in the background, you're like, hey, can you prioritize that for one of these Cellar Saturdays? Let me know in the comment section below. One of the ones I know I want to do sometime in the relatively near future, I have a Three Philosophers from 2012. So I kind of like to do like a 10-year one on it. But anyway, so yeah, definitely feel free to comment. So this is 2015. So this has 7 years on it. It's Sierra Nevada, barrel-aged barley wine, ale aged in whiskey barrels. I don't remember if I've ever reviewed this vintage or not. It's 11.9% ABV. I will read the back, so if you're not interested, just feel free to skip forward. It might be tasting notes, but whatever. Our Bigfoot barley wine style ale is a craft beer legend. Each winter, this beast of a beer appears to ambush unsuspecting palates with its intense, bittersweet flavors. We matured this special barrel-aged version in oak Kentucky bourbon casks for nearly a year before unleashing it into the wild. The result is an incredibly complex version of the classic beer. Bigfoot's notorious assault of resinous hops has mellowed, and the wood's influence shifts your focus toward the malt-rich, burnt sugar flavors and notes of vanilla, toasted coconut, and raisins. Grab this elusive beast while you can. It won't be around for long. I have some other ones that are not barrel-aged. 2014, 2015. So these 2014s might be the same batch. I don't know how often they brew it, but anyway, 2014, aged for a year in barrels, 2015. Recently had, courtesy of Billy, this one, spiced barrel-aged Bigfoot that was 13%, so a little over 1% higher than this guy. This one was really good. That's why it's over here. This is contender for top 10 best beers of 2022. Anyway, all of that to be said, let's get into this guy. So not much of a pop on that. Should have brought a stopper down. Whatever. No big deal. Because I do plan on drinking this probably half today and then half tomorrow. Dirty glass. So yeah, beautiful mix of the brown with that red crimson. It actually reminds me a lot of last week's where I did the Lagunitas gnarly wine. That was from, I forget what year that was. Was it 2015 also? Yeah, that one was also 2015. I didn't even think of that. Okay, cool. So anyway, yeah, actually kind of reminds me of that one a lot. And let's see. At time of me checking, just under a finger of head, it's dark khaki. But anyway, let's get into the aroma. That smells good. Oh, you know what this has a note of? Okay, so here's the most unique thing about this. Rye bread. Like it has burnt sugar, caramel. It has some brown sugar. Definitely some of that sweetness, some dried fruits, raisins, some plums, or not some prunes. I mean to say. So it definitely has like that kind of stuff. But then maybe it's from the barrel. I know they're not rye whiskey barrels, but man, it really reminds me of like going to a party and they have the rye bread dip, and you have that, and obviously the rye bread itself. It like has like that intense of this rye note. That's really interesting. That could be some of the hops, like how they faded and or morphed a little. It could be some of the barrel. Wow, that's really interesting. Light pine, very light. With that rye bread, slight cracker, but it is mostly, these like sweeter things. Not mostly, it's a little bit majority the sweet things, but then there is all this other, like, not savory, but like the notes that aren't sweet that help bring a little bit of like balance to the aroma. Yeah, that pine is nice. Kiss of orange, like West Coast IPA orange peel, which makes sense. And I think I said something similar last week with that Lagunitas gnarly wine. But anyway, let's get into the taste. Cheers. Thanks, Michael, for the idea. This is nice. This still has... Okay, so it starts... This has an interesting journey. It starts sweet with all that stuff I mentioned, the aroma, the caramel, burnt sugar, a little bit of brown sugar, some of those dried fruits, all that stuff. Then some of those other elements I mentioned in the aroma, some bitterness, increase in that orange, increase in that pine needle. Then it kind of gets... It gets sweet, but like... I've said this before about like how caramel can kind of come across in beer, like how you're drinking a beer and like, oh, this has a little bit of like a caramel taste. So sometimes like caramel, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't just taste like sugar. Like there's a sweetness to it, right? But there's other flavor as part of that experience. That's kind of like how it boomerangs back. It doesn't get like sweet again, but the tastes that go along with the sweetness, and maybe a kiss of the actual sweetness, like kind of like boomerang back. And then, and it's been a little bit since I've had a sip, and I've been talking for a little while at this point, the alcohol dryness, almost like an orange bitters that you put into a cocktail. Like it's like that kind of a thing. A little bit of pine in there as well. So like it's a lot of things. It's a roller coaster. This beer is at times like this beer comes across as like somewhat rounded and like the flavors have melded, but then also like very much like roller coastery. So it seems contradictory, but it's probably the age that's kind of allowing for some of this stuff to happen. It's definitely a beer I feel comfortable using the word complex. There's a lot going on in this beer. Almost some of that pine could be is it wintergreen? Is that the kind of mint that's like really closely kind of like associated with the pininess? Get a little bit more sweetness in the aroma. I know you can't smell sweetness, but like, well, that's a whole other video. Okay. In terms of the barrel, you get a little woodiness, but it's like popsicle stick woodiness. Very much vanilla-in. Not tricking your brain like, do they put a vanilla bean in this? No. It's very much like, oh yeah, I get that. That's that vanilla thing that barrels can kick out. Oak can kick out. I don't get specifically whiskey and bourbon. Like, I don't get that note specifically. I do get spirit, more generic, like the spirit and just straight alcohol. But there's not much of an alcohol taste. Don't misunderstand me. I will say this. This is good, but I do think it's past its peak. I think 7 years, more than enough time in the bottle. I'm going to guess, kind of like remembering a fresher version of this and then what I'm tasting now. I mean, fresh it was good, don't get me wrong. But like if you wanted to age it, probably somewhere between like the 2 to 5 year mark, I'm going to guess would have been like the sweetest spot for this beer. But I am happy to report it's not like bad or anything. It just, I think it is, peak and now it's back coming down a little bit. But still really tasty. Again, complex. A lot of stuff going on. I'm sure this is one of those ones I could have done like a live stream for an hour plus and just kept sipping and kept picking up new things. I'm sure as it changes temperatures, it'll evolve, all that kind of stuff. Really nice beer. but yeah, past its peak, I'm gonna go on record as saying that. So yeah, thanks, Michael, for encouraging me to try this, because who knows how long I would have let it sit for, and how much further down that from the peak that would have gone. Have you guys had this beer before? Have you had a regular Bigfoot lately? If you had one of these variants like I showed earlier and talked about earlier, anything, everything, comment section below. Let's get a conversation going. Once you're done doing that, make sure you check me out on Instagram and Untapped. It's No Hype Beer Reviews at both of those places. So please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, imbibe. Cheers, everyone.